The boy was only 8 when he first noticed the janitor. Most of the children in school walked past him without a word, their eyes fixed on their friends, their backpacks swinging as they ran down the halls. But this boy, small in stature yet bright-eyed, always paused. Each morning, when he saw the janitor sweeping the floor or wiping the windows, he would greet him with a cheerful thank you. It was not forced, not something he thought deeply about. It was just a natural instinct, as if his heart whispered that kindness should never be left unspoken. The janitor himself was a quiet man, perhaps in his 60s, with tired hands and eyes that seemed older than his years. He rarely spoke, and when he did, his voice was soft, as though he feared disturbing the world around him. Yet each time the boy's words of gratitude reached him, there was the faintest shift in his expression. A small smile, almost hidden, tugged at the corners of his lips. To the boy, it was just a friendly exchange. To the man, it was something he carried like a fragile flame. Days turned into weeks, and weeks into years, and the boy never failed to say thank you. Whether the hallways were filled with chatter or silence, whether he was rushing to class or lingering after the bell, his words remained steady. Thank you for keeping the school clean. Thank you for being here. Thank you. Simple phrases, yet filled with the innocence of a child who still believed that every person deserved to be seen. There were moments when classmates teased him, asking why he bothered talking to the janitor at all. Some rolled their eyes, saying it was silly to waste words on someone they hardly noticed. But the boy never let their remarks change him. Deep down, he felt a quiet comfort in acknowledging the man who worked in the shadows. Perhaps it was his way of saying that no one should be invisible, though he did not know it. Each thank you was planting seeds, seeds that would one day grow into a truth far larger than his childhood self could imagine. At the time, he thought he was only being polite, but life has a way of turning the smallest gestures into echoes that travel farther than we can see. The janitor, broom in hand, would often look after the boy as he walked away, carrying with him that tiny spark of warmth. For a man who lived in silence, those words were not just noise in the hallway. They were proof that he existed, that someone noticed, that perhaps his place in the world mattered. Time moved quickly, as it always does. The boy grew taller, his voice deepened, and his days filled with the noise of adolescence. Slowly, those childhood habits faded into the background. By the time he graduated and stepped out into the wider world, the memory of greeting the janitor every morning was little more than a faint echo in his mind. Life pressed forward with exams, ambitions, friendships, and dreams. Years slipped away, and the boy now, a young man, rarely thought about the hallways of his old school. Gratitude had become something he reserved for moments he deemed important. A favor from a friend, a gift from his parents, a door held open by a stranger. But the simple daily thank you that once flowed so naturally from his lips had quietly disappeared. One autumn afternoon, with leaves scattering like whispers across the pavement, he found himself passing by his childhood school. Something inside urged him to stop. The building stood as it always had, though the paint was peeling and the windows bore the marks of time. He wandered in, a rush of memories filling his chest, desks too small for his grown frame, chalkboards that once carried endless lessons, the faint smell of old books. And then, in the quiet corner of the hallway, he saw him, the janitor, his hair now grayer, his movements slower, yet still holding that same gentle patience in the way he swept the floor. The sight tugged at something deep inside the young man. Memories stirred, and suddenly he remembered those mornings, those small words he had spoken without thought. The janitor looked up, and for a moment, his eyes lit with recognition. The young man hesitated, unsure if he should say something, unsure if the man would even remember him. But the moment passed quickly, and he simply gave a polite nod before moving on. He carried with him a strange heaviness, as if he had overlooked something important. That evening, he could not shake the image of the janitor from his mind. The quiet figure who had always been there in the background of his childhood, steady and unnoticed. Why did the memory of those thank yous linger now, after so many years? He wondered if those small words had ever meant anything at all, or if they had simply drifted into the air like forgotten dust. Life often hides meaning in places we fail to look. For him, the truth was waiting just beyond the corner, ready to remind him that no act of kindness ever truly disappears. The following week, the young man returned to the school, this time with the intention of speaking to the janitor. Something inside him felt unfinished, like a thread left untied. He found the man in the same hallway, slowly wiping down lockers, his steps deliberate, as if every movement carried the weight of time. They exchanged a brief smile before the young man gathered the courage to speak. He introduced himself, reminding the janitor of the boy who once said, "Thank you every morning." At first, the janitor was quiet, almost stunned, but then his eyes softened and a small smile grew across his face. Yes, he remembered. How could he forget? With a sigh that seemed to release years of silence, the janitor began to share a piece of his story. Back then, when the boy was still small, he had been going through one of the hardest seasons of his life. His wife had passed away, his children lived far away, and each day felt like a long stretch of loneliness. He had gone to work not just to clean hallways, but to hold on to something that kept him from collapsing under the weight of solitude. And then, every morning, came that thank you. Those two words, spoken with a child's sincerity, became more than just a polite gesture. They became a reason to get up, to show up, to keep going. He admitted there were days when he wanted to give up entirely, but those small moments reminded him that he was not invisible, that he still mattered. The young man listened, his heart tightening as he realized the depth of what he had unknowingly given. Something so small, so effortless, had carried another person through grief and despair. He felt humbled, almost guilty, for never realizing it sooner. Yet, at the same time, he felt a profound warmth, knowing that his childhood innocence had given someone the strength to keep living. The janitor placed a hand on his shoulder and said softly that gratitude is never wasted, no matter how small. It carries light into places where darkness has settled. That truth stayed with the young man long after he left the school that day. Walking away, he reflected on how easily people overlooked the power of words, the power of presence, the power of gratitude. He promised himself he would no longer reserve it only for grand gestures. From that moment on, he would make gratitude a part of his daily life, because you never know who needs it most. And so, the child who once thanked the janitor grew into a man who finally understood that even the smallest kindness can become someone else's lifeline. Gratitude is more than good manners. It is a lifeline, a quiet reminder that we are seen, that we matter, that we belong. When we give it freely, we cannot always know the battles that help someone fight. This story is a gentle reminder that our words, even the smallest ones, carry weight beyond our sight. So pause, notice, and offer thanks. It may be the spark that keeps another heart alive. If this story touched you, consider sharing it, leaving your thoughts in the comments, and subscribing for more stories that bring light into ordinary days.